Hello, welcome back to another Tweener tennis video today here on the channel, and today we have the part 2 episode of our Train with Volley ball machine experience. Today we have the CEO and one of the original developers of this product, John, on with us. So I'm very happy to have him on, and it's not every day you get to talk to a CEO about the experience and what it's like creating a product in a already kind of established world. So it's amazing to have John on here, and we can't wait to see what you guys think of this video. Make sure to leave a comment, make sure you like this video, make sure you're subscribed. We're trying to hit 5,000 subscribers this year, and we would love to have you guys on the journey as well. So make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on. Now enjoy our interview with CEO of Volley, John. All right, John, thank you so much for doing this. It's not every day you get to talk to a CEO of a company, of one of the, I would say, one of the most innovative pieces of technology in the sports world right now, not just for platform tennis for those that follow our channel, but for, I think, all racket sports right now. So thank you so much for joining the channel.
Thank you very much for having me. This is, I appreciate this. I feel flattered that you're saying CEO in this. I think of myself as somebody who came into racket sports at way too late in life. And I was just looking for figure out a way to get better. So as an engineer or something like that, I just looked at what's out there. I'm like, man, I think we can make something better. And
Okay,
that's how I got into this whole thing. How's that?
I like that a lot, because that's just to start off with that. You didn't come from a rackets background. You didn't necessarily do anything with tennis or paddle or padel for that matter. Yet
I regret that my parents didn't get me lessons when I was a kid. It could have saved me a ton of time later in life. So yeah, no, I didn't pick up a racket until I was 40. We moved here to the suburbs of Chicago. And I had a neighbor down the street go, "Hey, you want to come out for this, platform paddle league thing?" And I was like, well, it's 8 o'clock at night. We drink beers and I get to meet people in the neighborhood. So yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Why not? We had a 2-year-old who would go to bed, so it was pretty easy to get out of the house. And and next thing you know, you meet a lot of cool friends. And from a sports standpoint, I came from playing a lot of doubles volleyball. And I found in doubles volleyball, you have a lot of strategy, as well as you can overpower your opponents. But a lot of times you'd go out and you'd play. And I know here in Chicago, where I played a ton, you go into the match, you're like, I've got this, no problem, right? These old guys, they don't stand a chance. And next thing you know, you got beat. You're like, what the hell just happened? And I witnessed that a few times in paddle as well. And it turns out I like the fact that I think the screens are a humongous equalizer, where you can't overpower somebody in platform tennis too much. And it was an element that just caught my enthusiasm and excitement.
And so what is your background in, for those that may have not heard of Volley or what you do? What is your background? Because you went to school in the Midwest, correct?
I went to undergrad at Penn State, and then I moved to Chicago back in 2003 to go to business school here at Northwestern. And I was living downtown when I left business school. I was kind of always been a serial entrepreneur. So I joined on with my father to help him out with the family business. So we were a John Deere supplier. We built sprayers for John Deere.
Oh, wow.
We'd done that for 30 years. It was a fun business to be in. They were our only client per se for that business, but spraying was one of these neat things that had a ton of innovation. My father and I were both engineers, and it gave us a chance to really build up a huge engineering skill set and do neat things like mix the chemicals in demand, or put cameras on it so you could see the weed and spray the weed. All kinds of things like that we were building these electromechanical things for John Deere, and we'd assembled an awesome team at it. Now, along the way of that, I was also, we were coming out with all this new stuff. We sold through John Deere dealers, so it was hard to get them to tell everybody what the new thing was that we were doing. So we created a second company that was like, hey, we'll control the conversation. We'll have touch screens and flat panel displays at the point of sale. We'll do all the, help the dealer sell our product better. John Deere saw it, goes, well, you're a tiny little company. We have this, huge problem, so they endorsed our product. They made our company real immediately. We actually grew that to about 25,000 installations at Ace Hardware.
Wow.
John Deere dealers, Do It Best. We had Weber, Big Green Egg, Steel. We had a ton of clients, and that business was a lot of fun to run. My brother is my business partner. He came on board. He's also an engineer.
Hmm.
And between these two companies, I was running them, and we had a lot of interesting engineering capabilities between those two companies going on. We sold the first one in 2019, and then we sold the second one in 2020.
Wow.
So it was kind of a decision at that point of like, okay, we'll exit this. But
Okay.
that was where in 2017 I started playing this platform tennis.
Hmm.
And that's when I dragged a tennis ball machine out onto the paddle court because I wanted to learn how to get reps of just learning how to do
Okay.
something. And I put it up on painter sticks, and it takes 5 minutes to fiddle it around to get the shot that you want. And the whole time I was just sitting there, I was like mapping everything we were doing in our other businesses to this thing. I'm like, why can't this ball machine just know where it's out on the court? Like,
Yeah.
why does, gravity's the same everywhere? Why can't it just throw the shot? Like I touch on my phone where I want it to land, and
Yeah.
the thing figures it out and sends the ball there. And then I'm
Hmm.
like, well, why can't it figure out where I'm at? Right.
Yeah.
And play me to the certain extent of this. And then the biggest thing really that came out of it, that it was my frustration, is
Please subscribe. Thanks.
I'd go have these workouts, and you'd be like, how did I do? Like, lick your finger, put it up in the air, see which way the wind's blowing. You had no idea of like, okay, I really, I improved my forehand, or what I was working on. I got the reps that I wanted, and I was doing it in the right way as opposed to, just practicing bad habits. So
Yeah.
these were all kind of the frustrations of my journey of trying to learn a racket sport that I was like, I think we could improve on this.
Yeah. And for you too, when you go into a business idea like that, how did you get to there? Because there's a lot of intricacies and a lot of detail that went into this. So where was the starting point for starting this company?
I think one of the biggest starting points on this was just seeing the void. So seeing, as I drag out this old ball machine and put it on sticks, people would want to come hit it, right?
Yeah.
Looking around, I learned how to play golf at the same time.
Okay.
And golf has like all of this data and technology around it. But what's also interesting in golf, like you have a driving range where people go and work on stuff. You have practice greens, you have chipping greens. In racket sports, I found it incredibly odd that was just void. They're, very, if you want to go out there on your own, you can work on your serve, I guess. But other than that, there was not a lot of options, especially in platform. So I was heavily, heavily biased at this moment in platform tennis, as we were putting this together, right? And I
Yeah.
was coming up with this idea, and platform tennis is an incredibly small market. I love it. It's relatively speaking, I think there's about 35,000 people who are members of the APTA.
Yeah.
There's probably about 500 clubs in the US that play this.
Hmm.
But it's we knew that tennis was the 800-pound gorilla. It's been fun. I've learned a lot about padel or paddle, depending on where you're at in the world, how you
Yep.
pronounce it. And of course, here in the US, we also have pickleball. But our
Yeah.
answer to this was, it's funny, as you say, how are you formulating this idea? I knew what we wanted to do had some technical hurdles to it.
Yeah.
And so you have to come up with a strategy that you can bring it to market in a successful manner. And so we chose platform tennis because if we would, for one reason or another, trip or fall or be a year late to the market or something, the market would be incredibly receptive because there was nothing
Yeah.
there as a substitute. And I think we would probably get 2 or 3 shots at getting this right for the entire market, and people would be receptive still because of the niche that we're trying to fill. I'm not sure that exists in tennis, right? I'm not sure if you
Hmm.
came out here with tennis is a big one. You got to be ready to move when you're walking into tennis.
Yeah.
Padel is interesting because it's at a certain stage in the US where it's just not big yet, right?
Yeah.
Like I could sit down
It's
and probably call
there,
every. It's there.
but it's not.
It's not there, right? It's super interesting. I'm excited for it.
Mhm.
I love playing it. It's such a great workout. I find that it has the best things of platform as the best things of tennis,
Mhm.
in terms of a workout and stuff like that. So I'm super excited to see its growth. But for me to build a company right now, it's not there, right? Like
Yeah, which is fair.
I'm willing to grow with it, and I'm excited to invest in it, and I'm
Yeah.
excited to go with it. But yeah, that's it. So that's kind of
I
the idea. So it came up, and you looked at the market and you said, okay, what's broken with the market? And the other thing I thought was broken was, the model. If you want to come out and do this at scale, what we
yeah.
were talking about building is it's It's a non-zero price tag. Okay, there are machines in
Okay.
football that are similar to ours that sell for about $75,000 a machine, and they go
Okay.
out there and they're selling them to the NFL teams. They're selling them to the top college teams. And when I looked at this, I said, we really want to go at the like kind of the middle 60% of the market, from the 20% to the 80%. Like, I'm not necessarily targeting the high end people. And the
Mhm.
reason why I said that is because, other thing I experienced with racket sports was really cool was, if you go out for baseball and get cut from the high school JV baseball team, you never hit a ball machine ever again. You're kind
Yeah.
of done. You're out of there. But if you get cut from the high school tennis team, you go join a country club at age 24, and like, you have 45 more years of with a sport that you love. And
Yeah.
that's what we loved about it as a market, that, we could have this impact and we could work with people for a long arc of time,
Mhm.
as opposed to it being just something that you would want to try, like, hey, while I'm on the college team or I'm trying to do this. We wanted to build something, I think I'd say, closer for the masses. How's that?
No, that's good, because I actually wanted to touch on when you talked about these higher end pieces of machinery, like
Yep.
you pointed out, for football, for NFL, for college, stuff like that. This seems like, at least in my opinion, seeing it in person and testing it out a little bit, this high end piece of equipment is something that you would want to put in the best training facilities in the world when it comes to tennis or padel or platform on that scale, because there's, like you said, a void or something. There are pieces of technology there, but they're not they're not at the advanced level that you're providing.
And we're going to get there, by the way, but it's just a
Mm-hmm.
question of kind of like, as the product matures, like, where's the value proposition reside? And
Mm-hmm.
right now, when we got started with this, we went and bought a company called Ace Attack. They're a traditional ball machine company. They were out of Reno, Nevada, made by Sports Attack. And when we got there, we went out there, and I had this idea, right? We could put this on all ball machines, but we backed away from the baseball ones because of what we were talking about, making them
Mm-hmm.
smart. And I wanted to go for tennis, and we bought the tennis machine from them. And what I learned real quickly, it's a super high end machine. It sells for about $10,000. It's designed to serve 120 miles an hour. So, take your high end player and practice return of serves or practice something like that on it. And it's great for that. The issue is like, there aren't a ton of places to go sell that. And then we
Yes.
also saw, like, in the tennis world, the model that typically has been there is like, you work through a distributor, like we sell through on court, off court, and they've been a great partner. But once it gets sold, I have no idea what happens to that machine. I don't know who's using it. I don't know how often they're using it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if those people are happy with how they're using it.
Yeah.
And so, one of the huge differences right now, I had a conversation today. I was trying to explain the difference. Like, they're like, oh, you make ball machines. I'm like, well, yeah, if a ball machine was a rotary phone and we're an iPhone, then I guess you could say, yeah, we make, we make ball machines. But, he was like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I can tell to the second every time a ball gets thrown in this network. Like, I
Yeah.
know exactly, and I know what ball was thrown, and I know where it was thrown, and I know all these details. And it's just an enormous amount of data that comes back, that we have real-time visibility into how often are the machines being used, who are they being used
Yeah.
by, in what practice, which allows us to maintain them and make sure they're being used and being used properly. So it's kind of neat in that regard.
Well, it seemed, from what I'm hearing, is you like to know what it's being used for at all times, and seeing the product and the video of me testing it out and taking a look at it comes out before this. So seeing that product and seeing the way you have two cameras at the top, you have a camera that looks at the maintenance, you see what it's being used for at any given day, which, no offense, sounds a little creepy when you first start talking about it, because as a ball machine, you don't really expect that. But
Right.
from a technology standpoint, it benefits you in the longer run than it does for the quick instant second of thinking of that.
So the beginning of this was, kind of, there are two things. It's named Volley for a reason, right? I'm
Yeah.
6'6". So learning how to play platform tennis after I'd serve it, the favorite place for everybody to hit it was right at my feet. And that, for smart play, right? That's what
Yes.
you do to the tall guy.
Yes.
And so I was like, you know what? vision of this is, why can't I just serve this machine and it fires a drive back at me and I can practice that on my own and
Yeah.
just go out there and practice 300 reps of me going towards the net. And maybe it's I stop at the service line for one serve, or,
Mhm.
or whatever. And so that was like kind of the one part that was a big piece of this. I'm like, why can't it just be smart and play me in that regard? The other part was, we have a phenomenal pro at our club here in Chicago, Westmoreland, that I'm at, and he gives great lessons. For me, I'd walk out of that lesson and, he told me 5 cool things to work on. I remember 3 of them because that's how I work, unfortunately. And then when I goes to play with my
You and me
buddies,
both.
I go play with my buddies and I jam the backside screen into the net for the 3rd time. They kind of just put their hand up and be like, "Stop! Your lesson was, an hour ago. Please don't do that anymore." And so I was left frustrated. I'm like, okay, we got to figure out how we can do this better. But now in the lesson, the pro, what little frustrating that experience was, them standing on the other side of the net and kind of, I don't want to say yelling at you, but when it's windy and there's something going on next to you, they are. And the answer now is the ball machine is the feeding device, right? And
Yeah.
it is, the pro now is next to me, and the pro puts their hand up and the machine pauses and they step in and say, bend at the waist. And you say, well, I am, or bend a little bit deeper to get that ball off the boards. And you're like, I am. And they pull out their phone and they show you the video real time. And you're like, oh, maybe I'm not actually bending as far as I could, or maybe I should bend my
Yeah.
knees, not at my waist.
Yeah.
And then, then they hit 1 or 2, and then they have a video side by side to show me, like, as a visual learner, this is
Yeah.
what I value so much. And then at the very end of the lesson, they push all of the content we practiced into my account for Volley. So when I go back out there, I can recreate that lesson,
Yeah.
in a moment's notice, and just replay it and replay the parts that I want. And
Yeah.
then I have video that I compare myself to, and then I can send my pro feedback through the
Yeah.
week. I can be like, hey, look, I was working on that backside. I'm still hitting it into the net. Like, what am I doing wrong? And, he can sit on his sofa at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night and shoot me a message and be like, well, check out your footwork. It's awful still.
Yeah. And from that perspective too, going back to the idea of control, it's more for the benefit of the player, not for the coach. And one thing that I was talking to Merrick about when discussing how it's being used, and if a pro is using it and if you're short a pro and you have 2 courts for clinics, is using the machine to your benefit as a coach. And one thing that I've learned in my job in coaching and just in general is a ball machine is great up until a certain point. And a ball machine is useful for getting repetition. But the problem is, if you're using the ball machine for the wrong thing and you have repetition and it's breaking down and you're doing the wrong technique over and over and over again, you're not going to allow yourself to learn while using it, because you're doing the wrong thing the whole time. So if you do use a ball machine, you usually need someone next to you or a pro that's going to help you with that technique throughout the entire time.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that is when we're doing things now in Chicago, like the shot of the weeks, where the pro will go out there and shoot the video of themselves first. You go out there and they get to recreate the ball in the court with the person. They can overlay themselves on top of one another and see the differences, or see the side by side. You are 100% correct on that. Making it an extension in this teaching element. Yeah, exactly. I think, the one thing that I'd love to go a little bit deeper on what you said, like, ball machines are great to a certain point.
Yeah.
That's where I think, like, the AI and the smarts come into this system that makes it all the different. So we know where you're at on the court, and I know what level of play, we've been playing around with court camera systems for a while. And the idea is, you go watch the different matches, and I'll talk about platform right now, because it's a pretty easy one, right? Let's just start
the main one right now.
Yeah. For us, like,
yes,
the difference between what you see at like a 40 PTI person is somebody who's hitting flat overheads. They're probably all close to the exact same speed. They don't have a roller yet. They probably, are decent volleyers, and that's that. And when you go out there and play now, like, if I would say, hey, I'm a 15 PTI, well, it will understand that you're going to start seeing some rollers. You're going to start seeing different speed overheads. You're going to see some spin, so it sticks to the screen before it drops down. And the machine adapts. And then it looks at where your positioning is, because I might have thrown a big third screen shot to get you moving, and now I'm going to dump one in the corner because I know you're out of position to make you hurry to go do it. These are all the exact same decision making processes that you and I would do if we
Mhm.
were playing in a match right now. And that's where the AI part really comes into this trainer. It's not with all the sensors being able to see where the ball is and throw a responsive ball or things like that. That's pretty standard. The AI part of it is in understanding the game, understanding the positioning of the people,
Mhm.
and trying to replicate what somebody would do to you in a match.
Mhm. And going along the lines of that court camera, did you look at any other camera systems that were in tennis? Or well, I think tennis is the main one that I would go down that route with. When it comes to cameras, and Coach's Eye was the original app that
Yep.
I used growing up. When it comes to that, what kind of cameras or what products were you looking at in that realm that really helped you develop the idea of, or help the AI kind of progress within the system?
Um, it's funny, we were using so platform is an interesting one because cameras are tough. They
Very.
seem easy. They seem easy. Like I'm going to just put one on the back fence and we're good. And then you realize like there's a tremendous amount of vibration.
Yep.
There's every time the ball hits it, things like that. So there's a lot of nuances to like for platform specifically as opposed to Padel because you have a little bit better situation.
Yeah.
For our primary development, like I've been filming every one of my matches with just a GoPro with a big fisheye camera.
Yep.
So you hang it above the door and you can see everything. That doesn't
Yep.
necessarily map to this to somebody being able to load the video and watch it themselves. It
Hmm.
maps better. It maps better to some machine learning applications where you have full coverage of the entire court and you understand what
Yep.
happened.
Yep.
We've also just played with normal GoPros. There's a number of like kind of there's security cameras that some of the clubs have put in where they mount them way behind the court. You know, I don't think the capturing is the fun part or the where the secret sauce is. I think once you get it,
Hmm.
what happens after that, and that's where the real interesting part is, because when you can break down that it was a forehand that they hit into the net, and at the end
Hmm.
of the match I can give you all of your stats, or I can give you all of that data. That's what's interesting. The data is where the value is, and then when you can go plug that right back into the volley trainer and recreate what it is that you're missing, that's it. One of the things, in all fairness, right now, when I'm playing ad and you know they hit a short volley or something, miss a volley, right? It's
Hmm.
3 steps in and the drive right on them, and you're
Yep.
in it. And sometimes when you're going for it, if it gets below the net, you're looking, do you pop it in the chest or do what do you do? My difficulty in my game right now is I'm pushing every one of them long. Okay, just I'm excited to get there and I just jam it long.
Yeah.
Well, I now have this loaded up in the trainer that I'm working on. Those 3 steps, and you get over top of it, so it's a controlled roller. It doesn't have to be hard to win the point at that point, but it's got to be
Hmm.
in, right? You've
Yeah.
taken the net, you've done the thing you wanted to do. And so this is the part where you take this from the footage, these specific scenarios that you're like, oh wow, from a data perspective, you lost 3 points in your match tonight. And by the way, you lost over time, you're losing this one. This is what you need to work on.
I like that because, again, one of the things that I love doing and what I've told people to do is look at and record your matches, because that's another way of getting better. Looking and watching yourself makes the biggest difference. And from your perspective in the AI you're using, it's always the pre-match footage that you seem to be focusing on, the training, not the actual match footage.
We're focused on the match footage, very much so. We don't have
Okay.
we have products that are in the pipeline, so we'll just say
Okay.
that. So,
Okay.
but that's how we build the trainer into knowing like, oh, this is what you would typically see at this level, is
Okay.
by understanding what's happening in that match footage. So that is
Okay.
something that we in our sphere of what we're trying to build. There is that feedback loop, and we hope we've closed the feedback loop on the lesson part, but on the match play part, that's very much where we want to get the next loop closed for you, where you can come back and it's fully kind of autonomous, that you would get something right away, and it would tell you, look, oh, here's the match history, here's my data of what I did and where I missed it and stuff like that.
So talk to me about the ecosystem that you're trying to create for volley, because it seems like that you got the trainer down, like
Yep.
that you are pushing that and that's going really well. Now, what's the next step for you in this company when it comes to everything else? Literally everything
I,
else.
I think the next steps that we're going to see is we're going to see a lot more around the community. So a lot more around how do people use this? So for pros, how do I use it in clinics? What's my best what's my best practices? You're going to start seeing a little bit more of the community from the users. We're turning on workout sharing and workout creation. So like, you can start having, here's the best workout of the week, and or here, let people judge, let people vote on what workout they like, right? Upvote or downvote. And you could play somebody else's workout. Right now, what we've populated with is something that aligns with how Madak has taught. He used to be a director, and by no means did we ever intend that to be, this is a completely open platform. We want to have the SA rackets, or we want to have the on floor, you name it, anybody in the sport, because one of the other things I've witnessed is people respond to different coaches different ways.
Yeah.
Some people relate really well to whoever it might be, and it might be
Yeah.
because you're left-handed. Who knows?
Yeah.
Whatever it might be. And so for that reason, we'd love to create something where you have this environment where there is an ecosystem building around it. The other thing that was really big that's coming up is called the gamification. So this is the fun part of practice. Now that we know like where the ball is going, we can score it. So you can go out there and one of the neater things, I don't know if Madak showed it, anything in the middle, you can play two-player, right? So
Yeah.
if you position the trainer in the middle, you can play two-player. So you
Yep.
can go out there with a friend and play the backcourt level 5 backcourt combo, which gets pretty maniacal when it starts dropping the
Yeah.
waterfalls on you on the nick and
How
things like
how
that.
perfect that hits, I have to say. Let me tell you something. I've never seen a better waterfall in my life, and that coming from an AI robot says the world.
It's pretty tough, but when you go out there and you score each other, and all of a sudden, like, it's a fun game, right? Like, we're going to hit 20 balls each, and let's see who can put them in the back corner, put them wherever the machine tells me to best.
Mhm.
It's funny you should say that, though, about the consistency of the ball, because one of the areas that we've absolutely just thrived in, and I didn't appreciate this because I not from where I came from. Madak did, and I probably should have listened to him better, but it is rallying with new players.
Yeah.
Like somebody new to a racket sport, like feeding a ball to, you're not rallying with them. I think you're just feeding them is the first
Yeah.
thing. And it's like, having that success of them hitting the ball right away, or in our sport, off the screens. Like the machine will put the ball the exact same place. They literally can just plant their feet and take their paddle and just hit up. And they can have success in very short time off the back screens,
Yeah.
which is where you get a lot of abatement in this sport. And what's funny is in padel or paddle, right? It's the exact same thing. If
Yeah.
you can get them comfortable with the glass, and understanding, as soon as it passes me, take a step forward and you got plenty of time, you can get people into the sport and have them stick around longer, which is really cool too.
Yeah. And one of the things that we were talking about during the demo is the ability to play two different levels with this, using that word gamification. With, you don't see that very often. Like, you can hit, and based off kind of my background with tennis as well as platform and paddle, using a ball machine for two different levels of players with two different types of speed, with two different learning curves essentially for those two players, instead of using it for one player and your partner is a higher level and you're both trying to get reps in. You have that ability with this product to build a better rhythm based on the program that you set up with the AI through your app.
Yep.
Which I thought was fantastic. And I thought that it's one of the biggest ingenuities when it comes to developing from a stagnant machine to one that does a lot of the work for you.
Yeah, it's funny. That again was probably somewhat built out of need, because a lot of times I'd go out with my daughter, who now she's 10.
Okay,
But
just wanted to clarify
so yeah,
that.
but go out and like, it's like, okay, you can go to the hut and play on your iPad for a little bit. They always want to come out, right? And then
Yeah,
so I'm like, great, now she can have this little pop drive that she can hit, and I can be out there having a real practice.
yeah,
And like, it's actually fun. It's kind of quality time, and it's not, it's just a different experience that you can never get that on another, I'd never seen it before. How's that? I
Yeah.
don't know what else is all out there in that regard, but it's that it can be that simple that you could dumb it down in that regard. But yes, you're right. It goes to the very complex side of it where you can have two people incredibly challenged at different skill
Mhm.
levels play in the same time.
And for you too, and I kind of want to get to the teaching element of a little bit and I feel like I would owe it to myself just to play a little bit of devil's advocate in this conversation, because I want to talk about the learning curve when it comes to the app and the actual product itself. While
Yep.
this product is pretty big, it's still you're still able to move it. It still comes down. It's still able to retract. You're still able to push it around the court. It's a lot easier than I thought it would be personally. But from a learning standpoint, for not only the I would say the people at the club that are using it, that would use it more than say a pro, to each its own, but at the same time having the pro learn it to then reteach it to the members itself. Are you worried about how much you'll have to kind of retrain to train pros with the product? Has that ever crossed your mind?
Yes, a ton. It's a big
Okay.
yeah. Think about, our pros are our number one channel partners, right? So
Yeah.
how, the very first thing that's a deal breaker is like, if somebody is using that on the court, I cannot have them go to the pro and be like, hey, it's broken, right?
Yeah.
Or this. Like, we have in-app chat, we have everything at that person. It's nice that they're on their phone controlling it, because that's also their communication device to us. So we are
Yeah.
sitting there, if you're asking like, oh, this is a little weird that you guys know every ball and everything that's sitting there. Well, there's a reason, because I can support you immediately and tell you
Yeah.
that, like, hey, it does look like, did you turn the dryers on today because when you came out at early in the morning? Because wet balls are the nemesis of pretty much every ball machine, because you
Yeah.
have some slippage and you can't get them to go perfect. And when we detect that, like at early in the morning, like, hey, were you playing a little bit before the court got dry?
Yeah.
You name it like that. So that's how we can help out. So the very first thing though, can't have pros tech support. That we don't want them to do it, because it's not good in that situation. That's why we have built in certain things though, relative to this being introduced to players through their lesson experience
Yeah.
and clinic and drill, because we think
Yeah.
that if the pro just uses it in that manner, it drives down the barrier enough that people aren't intimidated. Now,
Yeah.
you're correct on the physical. I would love for this to be smaller. I'd love for a lot of things. Unfortunately, there are just laws of physics and gravity that I cannot overcome. And if you're going to raise this up to eight, if you want to be able to raise this up so you can do serves or you can do overheads,
Yeah.
you have something that has to go 84 inches off the ground, period. And if it's
Yeah.
up that high, I need something that has stable and is safe.
Yeah.
And that's where a little bit of this weight comes in. Now we're able to get
Yeah.
it to fold down, smaller than a shopping cart.
Yep.
When it's in the down position. um at first I think it's a little bit intimidating. I think it's a case
Yeah.
though, when people start seeing the value that they're getting out of it,
Hmm.
that intimidation quickly goes away.
I agree.
And that's the beauty of it, that we know we can keep working on, I call it the
Hmm.
physical size of it, but
Hmm.
we're pretty excited. That I think what I've seen is people, we have a survey that's on its way back right now of the users, and what we're really trying to measure is, have we successfully created this single player racket sports experience? How often did you play before with friends? How often did
Hmm.
you take lessons before? How often did you play in your matches? And
Hmm.
as the data is coming back, it's showing that that's all still the same. It just so happens now that they're spending 20% more time on the court, because they're able to go find times when they could never do this before, and come out and play. I mean, we have a
Yeah.
fellow out in New Jersey, at Plainfield, New Jersey, that you see this thing fire up in the morning time on his way to work. Great.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty neat in that regard.
And I like the way you put it, is pros not being the tech support is one thing that you really have to think about, because we're the threshold when it comes to learning and teaching. If
Yep.
as a pro at a country club, and as a just someone that's taught for most of his life, just using myself as an example, it's you can't be the answer to everything. And it's just developing the self-dependency that we try to make players do when they go out on court. So it's kind of the same thing that you're trying to doing with the volley machine itself, because it's our job to teach them, but it's like you're trying to make them learn something else without us getting involved, so that way you can be self-dependent with it.
Yeah, I think we can make it intuitive enough that the app that people can figure it out and go, right? I think there's not a lot of times that people have had to call Peloton tech support, I think, to figure out how to get on a bike ride. So I'm confident we can get to that point. Like that part is I'm confident on. I think there are two things though that, to talk about here. Number one, we will not be in the business of dispensing advice or how to get better, anything like that. That is not. We will do everything we can to get this right up to the precipice where the pro has the everything they need to dispense the knowledge, because I really want I think I saw this somewhere. It's like, get paid for what you know, not for your time. And in the case of a pro, I think there's plenty of people that I've met that it's like, hey, if you want to make 20% more, they're like, well, I have 20% more lessons this month, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, like here's the benefit with Volley. I can help you go get clips from your club, and you can sit on the sofa on a Thursday night, and you can blaze through what we want to call it a cameo level of engagement, to dispense valuable information to somebody that they can continue on their journey and moving forward. And how can we figure out a way for you to get compensated for that? That's what I consider our problem to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal of what we're trying to build. The other thing that we're trying to do too, though, is give more touch points for the pro. Sometimes with membership, in my case, our pros, they play on a certain night. They don't necessarily see everybody who plays. And unless you take a lesson, they know your name. You're around the hut, they'll say hello. But the relative ability for them to have any insights on your play or something like that. And that's where the AI gets so interesting, is if I can send our pro a database, a next morning about all the stuff with the clips isolated exactly to this situation where, hey, it's mentioned to player A and B that maybe they shouldn't both take the net at the exact same time sprinting forward. Let one of them take the net and let the other person, slowly come up after they've established the net with the first overhead or something. Or, hey, don't hit this crossing shot when you're back here, or, don't try to, when you guys are going to one corner, don't go across it. You open up a third of the thing. These are all super easy things for us to pick up, that if you can provide this to the pro in a way that they literally just click on it and it gets shot to the user with the video clip that says, hey, in your match last night, I just want to call this out. Like, people don't need to know necessarily that's from us, but it allows the pro to have a bigger engagement with their membership base, which is beneficial to everybody.
No, I like that a lot. And when you talk about them, pro seeing and kind of replaying the feedback for them, is there a way for them to send them notes online for if they saw this and the player asked them to take a look at their footage, could they send them a message on the app itself?
Yeah, it's all built into the app at that point. Yep. So, and then the conversation, hopefully, what it really gets down to is, hey, why don't you come in for a lesson, right? Why don't we get some time on the books and let's go over this and let's get you set up with 3 or 4 tricks of this.
Yeah. And one thing I liked how you said, kind of developing this, and it's funny, the way my line of thinking is going with the volley, it's not to replace pros. It's not it's a training aid that's not supposed to help you get your game, to make your game better. It's an aid that's going to help the pro make a player better by seeing and receiving the feedback from their own personal training that they can then review with the pro itself.
You started this whole conversation off, so I'm going to use your words. We're just making sure they're doing it the right way.
Yeah.
They're just practicing with the right manner and the right reps, not and reinforcing good habits.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
I totally agree. And I would I want to kind of focus a little bit more on tennis for the next couple minutes, just to kind of
Sure.
talk about the direction that you're going in. Because for when I saw a machine like this, I I got super excited of what I could do with it for tennis. I
Yep.
got super excited about the possibility of others using it. Myself, honestly, I would use this machine for tennis if I could, if I had so much time. I like the idea of having an AI tennis machine, because there's already technology out there that uses AI. Like
Right.
one that I believe in truly, and one that's a sponsor of the channel, is SWINGVISION.
Yep.
They've developed that AI technology, especially being in a Mac keynote and an Apple keynote, and developing technology to call their own line calls, to see and view everything. That's the kind of data that people don't need a degree in. They can read that and break it down themselves, especially
Yep.
with the AI. So for you in this company, what do you see with this product, and again, your ecosystem of products that you're developing? What do you see this going towards in terms of tennis, if it is at all?
Oh, 100%. These are all moving to the tennis court here when paddle season comes to an end.
Okay.
I hope that half of them will stay. You know, we usually are installing about 2 at every club right now. I hope one of them stays in the platform tennis court, because that's the time for people to work on new shots and new skills and things like that in the off season, get comfortable.
Yeah.
But it's designed for the other one to go to the tennis court, and this is kind of our entry into tennis, is in
Hmm.
a safe environment with pros that are already using it, in a, already know how to use it, right? And they can
Yeah.
get, we want to, in all honesty, I want to learn from them just as
Hmm.
much as they're going to learn from us on how to use it. But
Yeah.
back to the point that you just made, like, this trainer is still the center point of everything. So where does it go? It all comes back to the trainer, because
Hmm.
in order, we can do any shot in the game at any angle, and in tennis, what is the it's the same thing. Like, swing vision's, pretty neat. It's amazing how powerful it is for a little app.
Yeah.
Line calls are really interesting, because when I get into line call problems in platform tennis, it seems like everybody's heated, and if you went over and touched a piece of technology and said in or out, somebody would just break the technology, is what but you know regardless,
I love
you
that.
know,
I
so I
love
always
that.
laugh. I'm like, if we can do this, we're going to go right up to the edge of line calls, and I don't want to get involved in that, like, squabble. But I use Sling Vision, and the question is, cool. It told me this stuff. Now what?
Yeah.
What do I do with this? And PlaySight was the same exact way. Like, I used PlaySight, but then what? Give me the application of the data that can help me, and that's where the trainer, and that's where some of the programming that we have around this comes in. And so when we can recreate exact game like scenarios of points that you are losing, and you can practice those or relive those, like, that's incredibly valuable.
Yeah. And I like the kind of phrase, then what? It's always
Yeah.
the afterthought of, okay, I've done all this. I've done the product. I've used this. I've done that. Now what? Then what? What do you do with it? How do you spend your time with it? What do you use it for? Where do you store it? And I think that's the biggest question when it comes to things within that nature. And for you, I guess in the next 5 years, where do you want this company to be? If I was to ask you right now.
Oh, I think we're going to continue down this club path. So if you're asking, what clubs are we looking at, it's probably somewhere around, like, the country clubs. What I think the numbers are, somewhere around like 8,000 of those in the country. There are 6,000 racket clubs, dedicated racket clubs in the country. And then if you start looking at, pickleball, dedicated pickleball clubs, those are starting to pop up. They're
Yeah.
around. And of course, you have Padel to toss in there, right? For
Yeah.
if you look at the numbers of some reports, it could be that we're gonna have one on every corner here in
Yeah.
5 years. But
Exactly.
um, regardless, we're going to stay focused at these club models and
Hmm.
expanding through them, because I think it is that's where our machine, bears the most value. Is those clubs typically have some sort of teaching pro component to it, And as we hone with more features and keep building out this product, I think that's at some point we're going to step into the collegiate market, more of the training, the elite training center, like that type of stuff. It's just not where we're at this moment in time, that I feel like you would have to, what's the best way of saying it? That last 20% to make sure the product is perfect and appeals to them is so costly. And that's one of the reasons why I think right now we have a long way to go in this model right now.
I agree.
I think we'll be at probably 5,000 clubs in 5 years. That's our goal.
All right. I love that. I love that a lot. I really like that. And John, I can't thank you again for taking time out of your day to do this. I know it's late, and I really just appreciate you doing this with us, because we love learning about this type of technology. We love learning about new products in any racket sport world. So I really do appreciate you coming on. If you guys want to check out Volley itself, I'll leave a link to the website in the description, as well as their social media. John, do you have a personal social media that you want to shout out as well, or are we just keeping it to the Volleys?
Just the Volley one hashtag is Train with Volley.
I love that. So hashtag Train with Volley. Make sure to follow that. And guys, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you are following Tweener Head Tennis on all social media platforms. And we'll see you guys in the next one. John, thank you again for doing this. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Phil. Big fan.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.